Hello, everyone. This is Danielle Park, the Preservation Alliance of West Virginia here today. Thank you all for joining us for our very first webinar series. So we have Mackenzie, who is the director of the West Virginia Mine Wars Museum, and Christy Bailey, who is the executive director of the National Coal Heritage Area. And they will be doing a joint presentation with us. And so there are questions, and you can submit questions if you have them throughout the webinar today and toward the end of the session. You can also submit things in the chat if you have anything that you wanted to send along, and we'll be able to look at those as well. So you are joining us today for the session called The Continuum of Public Support for History in Southern West Virginia. Thank you for being here with us today, and I'm going to hand it off here to Christy Bailey. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to submit those.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. We appreciate you all joining us today. We'd much rather gather in person, but this is what we're facing right now. So we're going to discuss a couple things today. I'm going to give an overall picture of coal heritage preservation that's going on in Southern West Virginia. And then Kenzie's going to take over and focus in on the community of Matewan, which has a lot of activity right now, and of course is a very important place for our coal heritage. So we're going to talk just a second about how the Coal Heritage Trail and the National Coal Heritage Area got started, and then how it led to other activities. So this has been going on a long time. In 1992, there was a study was completed that was authorized by Congress, actually, which authorized the Park Service to develop a study of preserving West Virginia's coal heritage resources. This was completed by the National Park Service in cooperation with the West Virginia Division of Culture and History, and it really grew out of public concern about coal heritage resources disappearing throughout the region. So the study was completed. I have a little picture of it there, and it recommended two different things. It recommended that the Coal Heritage Area be established and the Coal Heritage Road be established as strategies for protecting West Virginia's coal heritage. This was back before there was such a thing as heritage areas or even scenic byways. So that study was in place, and then West Virginia was ready to seek those designations. The next slide, Ken. So in 1996, when the National Scenic Byway program started, the Coal Heritage Trail was one of the early National Scenic Byways designated, and it was designated because of the cultural and historic and intrinsic qualities along the scenic byway. The Coal Heritage Trail travels from Mercer County to Fayette County, and essentially travels along Route 52, and then Route 16 from Welch all the way to where Route 16 meets Route 60. So that's a kind of a corridor-based approach to protecting resources and interpreting resources. So the same year, in 1996, the National Coal Heritage Area was designated as a National Heritage Area. There are now 55 National Heritage Areas. When the National Coal Heritage Area was designated, it was one of 12 different heritage areas. So we now in West Virginia have 3 National Heritage Areas. We have the National Coal Heritage Area, which is the 12 southern West Virginia counties, plus the Paint Creek and Cabin Creek watersheds in Kanawha County. We also in West Virginia have the Wheeling Heritage Area, which is the city of Wheeling, and our new heritage area in West Virginia is the Appalachian Forest Heritage Area. So with all of those 3 heritage areas, West Virginia has 33 counties that are in a National Heritage Area. National Heritage Areas work in partnership with the National Park Service to protect, preserve, interpret resources throughout the region. So we have a lot of different things we do. Certainly we do preservation work and interpretation, but we also take a community development approach to developing the history of our region. So these are some of the ways we accomplish that work. We partner, we fund. We have a small grant program that we fund projects through. We also do resource development and protection, and then always looking for and developing interpretive opportunities. And then we do some promotion and marketing. So here's some examples of the work we've done in partnership with other organizations. The Paint Creek Scenic Trail, which is a West Virginia scenic byway. We worked with those folks for a long time to develop interpretive opportunities along the Paint Creek Scenic Trail. The Bramwell Depot Visitor Center, which is located in Mercer County. That's a partnership with the city of Bramwell. They own the visitor center, which was actually developed with co-heritage money, and we operate that and welcome about 15,000 visitors a year there that are coming to Bramwell. And then the other picture, the Country Roads Scenic Byway Visitor Center, that is a partnership with the Hatfield-McCoy Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Logan County Commission, the Hatfield-McCoy Trails, and then the West Virginia Division of Culture and History, who helped us with exhibits and displays there. So that is open year-round, right outside of Logan as a visitor center. So we also fund projects. I mentioned that we have a small grant program that we put out a request for proposals every year and accept proposals and award funding to different projects. Over the years, through this small grant program, we have been able to put about, with our part and the match that the partners put in, we've put in about $15 million into projects in Southern West Virginia. So here's a couple examples. Leyland Miners Memorial in Fayette County. There was a disaster there, the second largest one in the state, that had never been commemorated. So we worked with actually a church there to put that Miners Memorial in. John Henry Historical Park in Talcott. It has been a project that we've worked with for a long time to develop the park with interpretive signage. They're working on some trails, some static exhibits there right now. And so that's in partnership with the Summers County Commission. And then the Beckley Exhibition Coal Mine, which is the most visited coal heritage resource in the region. They have about 50,000 visitors a year. And we helped with a lot of funding to develop the new visitor center that was completed there. So we have a lot of partners with funding. We have funded many projects over the year, and sometimes, like John Henry Historical Park, we hang with them for a long time and fund them over multi-years so they can continue their work. So that's one project that we've done that for. So we also do resource development, and this tends to be the largest part of our historic preservation work is the resource development piece. You see the Houston Company store there, which is the exterior of that building has been completed, and that is in Kimball in McDowell County. The exterior has been completely restored. We're working on strategies right now to try to get at least a couple of the rooms open so it can serve as a visitor center for McDowell County. That project has been in partnership with the McDowell County Economic Development Authority, the McArts Fine Arts Organization, the town of Kimball. So kind of a work in progress, but the building is beautifully restored on the exterior and is protected and safe now. You also see the White Oak Depot there. So that's the old Virginian depot that's located in Oak Hill. And we have helped them with funding on a couple of projects, but 2 summers ago, we were able to bring Boy Scouts in that were at the Boy Scout Jamboree. We did 2 days and volunteer work of returning that depot to its original Virginian orange colors. So we spent 2 days doing that. We've also put some other funding in there to do some outside exterior work, but that was and that is listed on the National Register, as is the Houston Company Store. And then you'll see the Coal Heritage Discovery Center. That's a structure we've been working on in Mount Hope, West Virginia, which is in Fayette County. And the exterior of that building has been completely restored using multiple funding sources. We're now working to get the interior work done. We're doing some creative ways to get the interior work done. When that's completed, it will be our offices. It will serve as a visitor center and interpretive space. And that structure is a contributing structure in the Mount Hope National Register Historic District. So we also do a lot of interpretive projects. You'll see the African American Heritage Auto Tour up there, and that was a partnership with the New River Gorge National Park and the New River Gorge Development Authority. And we created African American Heritage Auto Tour that goes through 4 counties, and that is it's a auto tour, but it also has interpretive waysides at various points along it. It is in actually in Nicholas, Fayette, Raleigh, and Summers counties. And then we've done a lot of interpretive signage. We have done that primarily along the Coal Heritage Trail, although this one in Hinton is not on the Coal Heritage Trail. So we have interpretive kiosks, and we have those in Bramwell, 5 places in McDowell County, Helen, which is the coal camp community in Raleigh County, and so on up the Coal Heritage Trail. So we have a lot of those, and then sometimes our partners do that as part of their grant programs. And then we have exhibits and displays. So the display you see there is Architects and Architecture of the Coal Fields, which was funded by the West Virginia Humanities Council, and it traveled throughout the region, talking about the different types of architecture in the region. But it focused on 2 architects, Hassel Hicks and Alex Mahood, and a lot of the work that they have done throughout the coal fields. So we tour those around to different places to share information. And then one of the last things we do, we don't have a huge budget for this, but we do market the Coal Heritage area and the Coal Heritage Trail through various ways. We take exhibits out to festivals and events. I think the exhibit you see there, we were at Train Days in Thurman, where we're always there, was an exhibit which shares our information with about 500 people every summer. So we do that at various places throughout the region. Then below that, you'll see a piece of advertising that was done in partnership with West Virginia Division of Tourism, and we use their co-op advertising program primarily. And this just came out. It was just featured in Shenandoah Valley magazine. So, and through that advertising, we of course get requests for more information. I think one of our latest pieces of advertising that went out in America Road magazine, we had 2,000 requests for information that came from that. So when we get that, we respond with our publications. This is our primary publication, Exploring the West Virginia Coal Fields, and we distribute that through all of the West Virginia Welcome Centers, West Virginia Parkways Welcome Centers, and then in response to requests for information, we distribute that. So we send out about 18,000 of those a year to people who are wanting to come and learn about our coal history of the region. So one of the places that is extremely important to our work is Matewan. Matewan is designated as a National Historic Landmark because of its importance to the story of the West Virginia Mine Wars, and that's had a lot of its beginnings there in Matewan. So all of that work we do kind of comes together in Matewan. We have funded projects there. You see there we put in a new audio, the folks in Matewan put in a new audio post to tell the story of the Battle of Matewan, plus other stuff. But we also have helped fund some preservation projects downtown, some of the buildings that are important to Matewan's history. But over this past year, with our partnership with the Preservation Alliance of West Virginia, we have had an AmeriCorps member, Mackenzie, who is does two things: works as a part-time as an AmeriCorps member with us, and then also works as the director of the Mine Wars Museum, and who's taken a real leadership role in Matewan to help develop that resource. So I'm going to turn it over to Mackenzie and let her give you some detailed information on what's going on in Matewan these days.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. I'd like to step in and just provide some insight as to why and how Matewan has become this hub for heritage tourism, and also give some thanks to people that have paved the way for this to happen, such as Coal Heritage, Becky Bailey, John Hennon, and Kenny King, and John Sells, and so many others. And I'd like to introduce you to some of the work that's happening on the ground in Matewan today that I've been a part of and have got to help with. And my hope is that at the end of this presentation, I'll have everyone convinced on why Matewan should be your next trip once these social distancing guidelines are uplifted and we return back to a new normal. First, I'd like to give you a primer on the Mine Wars Museum and how we were founded, in case today's the first time that you are hearing about us. And the story kind of starts with 2011, when there was a 50-mile march to save Blair Mountain and restore it on the National Register, which was done in 2018, just a couple of years ago. There were a few folks from this march who decided to form a museum, and it consisted of a UMWA leader, a professor, a teacher, an architect, a descendant of a Mine Wars hero, Frank Keeney, and local residents who wanted to tell the story of the West Virginia Mine Wars Museum through the perspective of the ordinary people that lived through it. So the men, women, children, immigrants, and that's what they did. And they met in 2013 for the first time, though the museum wouldn't open until 2015. In the meantime, volunteers were securing a building to host our exhibits, obtaining our 501c3 status, and doing administrative work to really get us set up. And also doing a lot of fundraising, securing grants from the National Coal Heritage and the West Virginia Humanities Council, and hosting a successful crowdfunding campaign where they raised over $21,000 from 344 individual donors, which was pretty remarkable. And the response since then has been incredible. 500 people showed up to our grand opening in 2015. And, you know, there's this question of why Matewan? Why would Matewan be the spot to build a museum that's focused on the Mine Wars instead of other sites such as Paint Creek or Marmet or Blair? But by the time we reached 2015, we find that Matewan was this growing hub for tourism, and particularly people who were interested in heritage tourism. And it was really ripe for this kind of preservation work to continue. The people in Matewan and organizations have started to embrace this history and to showcase this history. So I'd like to give a little bit of background on Make One and the decades leading up to when the Mine Wars Museum was founded. In the 1980s, we see, perhaps most famously, we see the new film, Make One, released in 1987, that introduced many folks to this story for the first time, and it kind of reignited this flame to remember this history. In the same decade, Dr. David Corbin published a book called Life, Work, and Rebellion in the Coalfields, and it was one of the first comprehensive studies that was done on the West Virginia Mine Wars. Around the same time, doctorate students from West Virginia University, Rebecca Bailey and John Hennon, oversaw the Make One Oral History Project, and this was really the first time that community members talked openly about the Battle of Make One, the fight for unionization, and what life was like during the West Virginia Mine Wars. And I've currently been listening to these recently, and I'm working with Dr. Bailey to secure some tapes for the museum to use in our exhibits and future education programming. But if you're interested, you can go to the State Archives website and read some of the transcripts. What followed in the 1990s was really pivotal as well. As Christy mentioned, Make One was officially recognized as a National Historic Landmark. Coal Heritage Area was formed, and a flood wall was built between 1992 and 1997, which saved what was once the most flooded town in America from destruction. And these floods were a major threat to future preservation efforts. So it's important that Make One has this. At the turn of the century, we see this work continue. There's more and more grassroots efforts to commemorate this history, and perhaps most notably is the Make One drama group that hosts the annual Heritage Day every year. It's a street reenactment play of the 1920 gunfight that is led by the group's director, Donna Paterino, and this year, 2020, will mark 20 years since she has led the all-volunteer cast. Also in the same decade, we see a new museum being built by Massey Energy, which is down here at the bottom. It's the Make One Depot Replica Center. And since then, it's been taken over by the newly developed Make One Convention of Visitors and Bureau, and it's where I'm stationed at whenever I do my AmeriCorps service in town. At the same time this was happening, we see Make One becoming a tourist attraction for those who enjoyed a little bit of adventure. And so the Hatfield and McCoy Trail system has grown remarkably since then, and you can see some folks that are on their ATVs on the screen. And so by this time, Make One was really the key place for us to open a museum. And since their inception, we've aimed to be more than to just simply exist as a museum. We want to promote this history as much as possible, and we do that through several key areas of our work, and that's through our exhibits, through youth education, through our Mine Wars journal, and at our events. So these pictures represent some of our events. We've been able to welcome John Sells and Maggie Renzi to the museum. You can see one of our artifacts, the canary cage, being displayed on the screen, and you can see students that are visiting the museum and wearing red bandanas last spring. Our exhibits are designed by and directed by Sean Slifer, and artifacts really come from community members who put them on loan or donate them to us to display, such as Kenny King, Wilma Steele, and Doug Eastep. The museum is open to the public seasonally throughout the spring and summer, and on Fridays and Saturdays. And we've averaged about 1,000 to 1,500 visitors per season. And in the winter months, we started welcoming school groups, field trips, and organizations through group tours. While we're closed at the moment, we're doing something that's really, really exciting, and that's building a new museum. But while we work to tell a compelling story through our exhibits, we also want to expand our reach beyond the four walls of the museum. And one way that we do that is through youth education. It's really been at the forefront of our mission since the get-go. And there's so many times when people come to the museum and, you know, they say something like, well, I never learned about this in school, or how come I was never taught this? And, you know, we're working to change this. So far, we've developed a teacher's toolkit that consists of unit plans that are aligned to state standards, additional readings and documentaries for teachers and students to use, and also coloring books for younger students. We're also starting to become a destination for classroom field trips, and we've hosted anywhere from pre-K to collegiate level people to come through our doors, and each tour is really geared towards the students and the teachers' interests and needs, and they almost always leave with a red bandana in hand and know in the background of what a real redneck is. We teach it as not a derogatory term, but as a symbol of solidarity for working class individuals. And this is a picture of our new building. We're currently in the process of rebuilding our exhibits, and this building is owned by Local 1440. Some of the members of that local can be seen in the bottom right-hand picture, and the top right-hand picture is their volunteer board of volunteers last summer while we were planning it. More to come on this later. Another way that we're able to present our work is through the West Virginia Mine Wars Museum Journal called In These Hills. Thanks to volunteer Chuck Keeney. He's a founding board member, and he really helps put together and edits these journals that we put out twice a year. And the content varies from time to time. We're able to produce original work from scholars. We're able to connect with Mine Wars descendants. And we're able to provide updates about the museum and their special events. Our latest issue will be coming out next month in May, and it is centered on the anniversary that is right around the corner, which is the Battle of Make-One Centennial. 2020, as Christy said, marks a very special year. It's the 100-year anniversary of a shootout that occurred between Unionist miners and Baldwin Phelps detective agents that left 10 people dead on May 19, 1920. As part of my AmeriCorps service in town, I was able to host and facilitate monthly planning meetings that began in last October and carries until present day. And it was set for May 16, 2020, but unfortunately it has been postponed. This day was supposed to feature projects that individuals and groups that had been working on, such as the drama plays, the grand reopening of the Mine Wars Museum with new exhibits, the grand opening of the old jail, a dedication to Cecilia Roberts, special presentations by the Mingo Messenger, which is a local newspaper, and new signage honoring and recognizing Sid Hatfield as an American legend and hero. It was an incredible experience to be able to bring together these different groups and engage with small business owners, town council members, members of the local CVB, members from different museums in town, church members and leaders, union members and leaders, local schools. Everyone found a way to help or to work on something special, and we each played to our own strengths This is a picture of one of our very first meetings, and we started out with 10 at our very first meeting, and at our last meeting last month, before we had to go into quarantine, we had 26 people. So it was really incredible to see, just to see everyone get together and play a role. But unfortunately, the coronavirus has caused us to postpone some of our in-person events. But we're working on some virtual options for people to explore. So on May 16th, you can join the Mine Wars Museum for a Facebook Live at 1 o'clock with a special message from our staff and one of our founding board members. And this live is going to be followed up by a virtual tour of Mate 1 that's focused around the Battle of Mate 1, and it will take you to places like Stony Mountain Camp, the gunfight, the site of the gunfight, the historic 1908 lockup in City Hall, which volunteers have been working on to restore, and the grave site of Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers. Additionally, the Mingo Messenger will be publishing a special edition newspaper that includes an 8-page wraparound featuring historic articles and groups that are doing on-the-ground work today. So would love to have you guys tune in for that. And also the Make One CVB, as Christy pointed out, recently installed a solar-powered Echo Post. It's a storytelling device that, you know, when town historians aren't available or things are closed at the time, they can go there and they can listen to stories about the Battle of Mate 1, about the Battle of Blair Mountain, and it includes our very own Kimberly McCoy. She is our storefront manager at the museum, and she's usually the one that guides our tours. So we're super disappointed that, you know, the Centennial has to be postponed, but we're continuing to build on this momentum that we gained from the community. And right now, one of the things that we're looking forward to is the Battle of Blair Mountain Centennial. Hopefully the coronavirus we've had a vaccine by this time, and events will be good to go. The Battle of Blair Mountain Centennial is set for Labor Day weekend 2021, and it's going to be a regional event. We've already held several different planning meetings, and this event is made possible through a grant that the Mine Wars Museum received through the National Endowment for the Humanities. We've got a core team that's been working with us, consists of the Coal Heritage Area, the United Mine Workers of America, CLEO, the Battle of Homestead Foundation, and the Terror of the Tug, who are really guiding us towards success by developing our logo, coordinating with partners, beginning to promote the event, and the core team will be planning for a kickoff event to take place in Charleston and a wrap-up event to take place in Blair. And right now, I wanted to let you guys know that we're welcoming partners to host their own events in their own communities, and they'll receive promotional support from the core team. If there's one thing that we can learn about this history, it's that we can do more together than we can alone. And so we want to plan for one large curated event series in 2021, and we'd love to have anyone a part of it. And we've started mapping out a schedule of events, and we've had some strong commitments from partners to develop programs and other things for Blair Mountain, such as a drama play that's going to take place in Welch on the courthouse steps where Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers were gunned down. West Virginia University Press and the West Virginia Humanities Council are planning for a book event with some authors that are coming out with new books related to Blair and the Mine Wars. The United Mine Workers are planning to reenact the 50-mile march from Marmet to Blair Mountain, and there's some plans to establish interpretive signage along the Blair Memorial Highway, which is from Marmet to Blair, the route that the miners took. So we're eager to to start seeing these events shape up in 2021 and add even more events and programs. Our next planning meeting will be on November 7th in Charleston, with the time and location to be decided. But you can follow us on social media and email me to get added to our new partner e-newsletter to stay up to date. I would love to connect with anyone who's interested in this event and being a part of it, whether it's hosting an event, volunteering, helping from afar. I think it's going to be a good time. So with that being said, I'm really excited about what the future holds. There's a lot of exciting things coming up for Mate 1 and for Southern West Virginia. I believe that our best days are ahead of us, like David Hatfield, who's a small business owner at Mate 1 once told me. So with that being said, I think we're ready for questions, Danielle.
Okay, thank you, Kenzie, and thank you, Christy. So we've had a couple questions come in. The first one came in whenever Christy was talking, and I think it applies to both of you. Can feel free to answer. What kind of marketing have you found most effective with a small budget?
Well, this is Christy. The things that, heritage tourists tend to be older, so we still use print for to do marketing, but and so in that respect, we found working with the Division of Tourism, using their cooperative advertising program has been really helpful. But we also try to target it. One of our best publications we use is a magazine called American Road, and it is focused on people who just like to do driving tours. So we kind of focus in on the people with specific interest. We've also found the motorcycle touring group is a real good market for us, because they like our roads. They like to ride on our mountainous roads. But I mean, you just have to say today, social media is probably one of the best ways to get stuff out, and pretty cost effective too. So
yeah, I agree with you, Chrissy. I mean, I think print is great when we're trying to reach an older population, but for us at the museum, we use social media, Facebook and Twitter primarily. But we also have an e-newsletter, because some older folks do use email still, and it's one of our most effective ways for communicating with our membership, with our donors, with our partners about what we're up to. And the software that we use is called MailChimp, and it's free and pretty easy to learn to work with. And I think it's free up until you get to about 1,200 emails. However, there's all kinds, such as Constant Contact. That's another one I've heard about. But yeah, I'd say social media and the e-newsletter are the ways to go.
Okay, the next question came in whenever you, Kenzie, were talking about bringing the school groups in to the museum, and it is, how can a homeschooling mom or group get the education package?
That's a great question. The education package is available on our website. It is wvminewars.com/teacher resources. If they have any questions or want to plan a visit to the museum, they can email me at kenzieKnew@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to set that up once we get up and running.
Okay, and then you did mention this, but I'll go through this one anyway. How can we receive more information about these meetings to get our community involved? That was in reference to the Blair 100 planning meetings.
You can email me your contact information and I will sign you up to receive e-blasts about the Centennial, and we can also schedule a one-on-one call to do some brainstorming about like what events happened in your communities that might be relevant and connect you with resources and people that are doing similar work. And you can visit our website at www.blair100.com.
And Danielle, I'd like to add too that we're just getting ready to award our this year's grants, our 2020. But next, probably November, we'll put out another request for proposals, and we are anxious to fund some Blair 100 events. So if there's a group interested in that, my email is on the screen there, and we would be very, very interested in funding some Blair 100 events.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. No, not yet. Okay. Next question is, do you reach out directly to schools? Do you reach out directly to schools to invite school groups?
I think it's been a good mix of both. So one way that we've been able to build our contact list is by tabling at events such as West Virginia History Day, going to fall festivals. We've been able to grow our teachers' resources list there. And then sometimes it's just been, you know, local schools reaching out to us saying that they'd like to plan a visit, and then it just kind of takes off from there.
Next question is, I understand the National Coal Heritage Area was formed in 1992. When did work on this effort begin?
So it was formed in 1996. It first started out, the management of it was placed in the Division of Culture and History and with tourism. And it had some false starts. A lot of work didn't get done for quite a while. But in 2002, the legislature created my organization, which is the National Coal Heritage Area Authority. And so we're a small state agency, and we have a citizen board that's appointed by the governor. And that's really when things started moving along with it. So we've really been working since about 2002. That same year, the legislature also created the Coal Heritage Highway Authority, which managed the Coal Heritage Trail. And we've taken responsibility. We've operated those jointly for many, many years. And in 2015, we went back to the legislature and had the two organizations officially combined. So now that there's just the one organization. So it was a little bit of a slow start. And but since 2002, that's really when most of the work has taken place with the Coal Heritage Area.
Okay, the next question is, do you have any AmeriCorps opportunities with the Coal Heritage Highway? For Preservation Alliance, we will be finalizing our position descriptions throughout this next couple weeks. And Christy and I have been talking about that, but we haven't really formalized anything yet. Do you want to talk on that at all, Christy, or anything about Vista opportunities?
Yeah, I'll just mention that we work with the Preservation Alliance for AmeriCorps members, which are members that do direct service, and we've had, oh gosh, over the years, I guess we've had 4 or 5 years of AmeriCorps members. But we also have an AmeriCorps Vista program that we manage, and Vistas do a similar but a different sort of work than AmeriCorps members do. And some of those Vista members work directly with us, but we also place them out with other organizations. So we actually are recruiting for a couple of positions right now. Friends of Blackwater is recruiting right now. So if you're interested in Vista, I'd certainly be interested in talking to you about that too.
Okay, next question is, how do you reach the motorcycle groups?
Our very best way is through a publication called Roadrunner Magazine. And so we're reaching out to a national audience there. We've had great success. They have done one article several years ago that they did on their own, and then we did a 2-page publication with them this past, I guess, in the fall. So we really work with that publication to do it. And then the Visit Southern West Virginia has a motorcycle publication that they distribute. So we usually have something in that also.
Okay, this last question here, unless another one comes in the next minute, is multi-part. So first thing is, could you talk a bit more about small grants for archaeological projects where the built environment has mostly disappeared or is too far gone for rehab? Would it be appropriate to apply for funding for a complete project or focus on something like a public education brochure? So I'll repeat that again. Could you talk a bit more about small grants for archaeological projects where the built environment has mostly disappeared or is too far gone for rehab?
So we have funded one archaeological project that took place in Tams, which was at the coal camp in Raleigh County. And that was a partnership with the, with the Ray Hall Transportation Institute at Marshall. So we have funded one of those. We're very interested in that. We'd like to see, if the project is done, we'd like to see some sort of a public outcome, such as a brochure or wayside exhibits at the site. So yeah, we'd be very interested in that.
Okay, and then the second part of that question was, would it be appropriate to apply for funding for a complete project or focus on something like a public education brochure?
I think a complete project would be the best way to go. We do, I mean, our grants aren't huge, and they do have to be matched dollar for dollar, but don't let that intimidate you, because most of our projects actually use in-kind services to match that. So we work really closely with people to help them make that match. But I think a project with some sort of a public piece coming out of it would be the ideal thing.
And one more question came through. How many staff members does each of your organizations have? So the Preservation Alliance of West Virginia, currently it's one staff person, me, but we have a new person who will start with us in August when she finishes her AmeriCorps term. And then we have about 25, give or take, depending on the time of year, AmeriCorps members who serve, and then they serve with different organizations. And currently I have 2 AmeriCorps members who are helping me. I'll let the others answer as well.
Yeah, sorry, Chrissy. The West Virginia Mine Wars Museum has 2 part-time staff, being myself and the other being Kimberly McCoy, who handles giving tours, running our online store, and kind of staffs it during the summer. And then the rest of our work is really dependent upon volunteer work or independent contractors that we hire for a specific job.
And the co-heritage area, we have 2.8 staff members. We have myself, administrative assistant, and then a financial, a 4-day-a-week financial person. We also have part-time people that man the depot in Bramwell. So we have 2, sometimes 3 part-time people that work there.
Okay, well, those are all the questions that we received. So I just really want to thank Kenzie and Christy for being a part of this webinar. The Preservation Alliance will be hosting a different webinar every week for at least until the end of July at this point. So you can check back for that. And then please also check the West Virginia Mine Wars Museum's website to see the different virtual things that they'll be hosting on May 16th and then ongoing as their plans are. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I hope you all have a great day. View this in the future. This will be available as a free recorded session on the Preservation Alliance website in the next day or two. So have a great day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle.